Welcome to Never By the Book podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Schols. At 24, I was dead broke and a full-blown alcoholic. By 40, I was debt-free and a millionaire. Now I share my secrets of success and transformation with audiences around the world as a speaker, author, and of course your podcast host. Today I get the honor of interviewing a good friend of mine and mentor who happens to be in town visiting, hanging out with me. So we decided that we would do a podcast. The last one I did was in October of 2020 with him, and I get the honor of doing it again today. And you know what? You haven't aged a day, have you?
I don't think so. I'm like Benjamin Button. I'm going backwards now.
I know you are.
That's my plan.
Actually, you know what? You are looking younger. You've had a lot of transformations over the last couple, haven't you?
I haven't shut down the gray hair yet, but I'm definitely feeling better than I ever have, my friend.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you're looking better than you ever have.
Thanks, man.
So
thank you.
Today we wanted to title the episode "Expect the Unexpected." Kenny and I have been talking about how the universe, kind of dictates what is happening with your life and stuff, and we've had a lot of conversations on that in the last couple days.
What's a fascinating realization is when you realize that as humans we desire to know what's going on. Mm-hmm. We desire a certain level of certainty, right? And yet at almost equal doses we desire uncertainty. And so we end up in this kind of complex place of, I really want to know what's going on, but I also like spontaneity. I like to do different things or whatever. And right now, at the time we're recording this, it's, arguably one of the most uncertain times we've had for a couple of years. Like from when we last sat down a couple of years ago, we were smack in the middle of some uncertainty. Right. And here we find ourselves again, 18, 20 months later from when we last sat down together. And what if we just start expecting that things aren't always going to go how we plan or the way that we think they might? Not that we don't plan, but we just lighten up a little bit and just go with the flow a little bit more.
Well, and that's the thing. So many people, once they set a plan to do something and they don't hit it, then they're all out of whack. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes.
You do a lot of self-improvement. You do a lot of study. You're really into the mind. Mm-hmm. And you've studied that a lot. Mm-hmm. So how does somebody, when they fall into that and they're like, oh God, this didn't work out, and they go into a funk, how do they get out of that funk?
Well, it really ties to core beliefs. And I think that our lives are run largely by what I would consider limiting beliefs. And so I personally have a core belief that the universe will not allow mistakes. And that challenges a lot of people. And I'm not minimizing any pain. You've had tremendous pain in your life and things that the normal person would say, oh my gosh, that's terrible. That's not. I just choose to not believe that. I think that everything that has happened, the tragedies, I'll put that in air quotes, that have happened in your life have happened specifically for a reason. The same is true in mine and my past and my history and different things like that. And so I think that what we want to remember is that language matters and wording ties to belief systems. And so when we say, oh my gosh, I failed, I made a mistake, I'm a disaster, I'm terrible. You focus a ton on finance, on personal finance. I'm not good with my money, Kelly.
Yeah,
what I'm just like, think about, right? Yeah. You hear that, that's a core belief. And what I don't realize is there's an underlying factor that when I tell you that, I'm just moments from getting out my credit card and buying something I shouldn't buy to make sure that I hold that belief true, because it's a universal truth that I've subscribed to.
Right. Well, we had another friend over the other day, and I don't want to call him out. I'm not going to say his name or anything, but he was saying how crappy his week's going to be. Mm-hmm. And he left the house, and Kenny and I looked at each other and go, wow, I hope I don't have his week.
Right. Yeah. It's easy to.
And then I talked to him on the phone last night, and he had a crappy day yesterday. Yeah. And, like the client we were talking about, a friend that that with the drinking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that what you've got to be mindful of in your own human development is that we're unique individuals sharing a collective society, collective belief system, different things like that. And right now, I believe that we have a mental health epidemic, if you will.
Right.
Like we have some challenges to face when it comes to mental health. And I know you're a recovered alcoholic. I've recovered from addiction issues myself in drugs and alcohol. But one of the biggest addictions that I see and that I work with and part of my mission to help, navigate is the addiction to suffering. And when you work with people that have a lot of issues with debt and with money and with finance, it's simply a manifestation point of being addicted to suffering.
Right.
I don't know how I'm going to handle if I was to be financially secure. You talk, heck, in the opener of your podcast, that every episode you talk about, I was broke and then I was a millionaire and by the time I was 40, this and that. A lot of people can't connect the dots. And for our listeners and our watchers today, remember that you don't have to connect to that right now. What I want you to think about is your own walk, your own level of self-worth, where you are today. And you don't have to be a millionaire by the time you're 40. Maybe you're 65 watching this, but you could change a habit a little bit and find a little more peace. Reduce a level of suffering that maybe you're addicted to is why you're doing those. And I'm not saying you're intentionally doing it. That's why it's an addiction.
Right.
You don't realize that it's happening.
Yeah, like you say, you don't realize it's happening. Well, that's back when I, was an alcoholic at 24. Oh, I still am a recovering alcoholic, but at 24, when I was still drinking, there was a mind shift. And when I read the book, The Millionaire Next Door, that was a mindset shift for me that really, quite frankly, never thought about till this moment. That if I wouldn't have had that mind shift, where would I be today? So
what was it that shifted in your mind?
That I didn't like the path I was on in my life. I knew I wasn't going to get to where I wanted to be. Because as a child, I always had this dream of being a millionaire. Didn't know what it looked like, didn't know what it was going to be, but it was a dream I had. And once I had that mind shift, then the universe brought it to me.
And so The Millionaire Next Door, for those of you that haven't read it, is basically a series of stories around, I'm a blue collar coach. It's around blue collar industry. Right. It's millionaires in welding and roofing and different things. And I read the book as well, and it went, oh, wait a minute. Okay, it can happen to us. So think about your own path where you are today as you watch this or listen to this, and think maybe our followers and our listeners don't have to be millionaires. Right. But what if they watch something where they could live on 40, 50, 80 grand a year, whatever the numbers are, and be content and be happy. Right? Everything we do is for a feeling. And that's tying to our title today, Expect the Unexpected. Everything that we do, we're seeking a feeling. And if I spend money, I get a dopamine shot that gives me a feeling. For you, if you save money, you get the same dopamine shot, and it's for a feeling. And I think that's where we get stuck. Like, I want what Kelly wants. I went through that. I was mentoring you. You were mentoring me. And we had to find our own way, because I don't run my finances just like you, and you don't run your businesses just like me, but we have commonality. We're directionally correct. And that's what you need to find as one of the listeners of this incredible podcast.
Yeah, because you don't know which direction you're going to go. Right. And to really focus on that is, when my wife and I got married, I had this vision of becoming a millionaire. She didn't at all. Her vision was having a great family, a great house, good friends, all that. And by focusing on that as core group together, we became millionaires. It wasn't focusing on just the money. It was focusing on everything around it. And creating a good universe And that good universe created us to be wealthy as well. And like you say, maybe you don't want to be a millionaire or don't desire that, but I think everybody wants to be happy.
Yes, I would agree. And so society has said there's a collective agreement that says if you have money, then you'll be happy.
Right.
And it's kind of like, my buddy Joe Polish talks about, money doesn't buy happiness, but poor doesn't buy
shit.
So you got to be, I think there is a balance there of, because what happens too is, growing up wearing secondhand clothes myself and, having the childhood that I had, the blessing now, I'll say, of having, I realized that a lot of people hang their hat on poor, hang their hat on the identity of I'm different. I wrote in my first book, 6 Dimensions of Change, I wrote about us and them mentality. And I found an identity about being one of us who doesn't go on vacation, who doesn't drive nice cars, who doesn't pay off homes, so on and so forth, instead of being one of them, the people who did those things. And then as I grew and I learned more, then I realized as I became one of, quote, them, I went, wait a minute, them are all messed up too. So I get, it's like I changed something externally before I was able to realize I needed to change something internally. And I think, again, with expect the unexpected, I think it's important that we look at what are you expecting. So what happened for you when you said, I have this desire, you create an energy, in my opinion, that you create an energy of attraction that's something that you want. And it takes a level of clarity. Earlier today, you and I were talking about this clarity. And so I would challenge those of you watching or listening right now to look at what are you expecting in order to even have an unexpected event happen? Are you planning on more of the same? Are you thinking, I'm going to have just another crap week? I'm in my early 50s. I got a lot of friends that are, they're going to start living their life when they're 62 or 65. I'm blessed with the fact that, my mom's last husband was diagnosed. You remember Richard was diagnosed with early onset dementia at 60, dead by 62. They put their entire life on hold until 62. So I think there's a balance of when am I going to allow myself to be happy? Can I be happy while I'm working through Kelly Schols' financial plan and getting my emergency fund and getting my debt reduction going and getting my debt snowball in place? Can I be happy then? Or do I have to wait until I'm a millionaire in order to be happy? Because you're going to wake up a millionaire and you're still not going to be happy if that's the case.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to my daughter recently, and my daughter's very driven, and I was telling you about it. Very driven. I mean, way more than I even was. And she's like, well, I'm only at this point, Dad, And I'm like, Amy, you're 24 years old. Look at where I was at 24. Enjoy the journey. And so many people don't enjoy the journey. And the thing is, like you were saying, you wore secondhand clothes when you were a child. I wore secondhand clothes as well. And even my mom made some of my clothes. But you look back on times like that and it's like, that was pretty fun. Now we can do different things, but looking back and that's a hard thing, and that was a really hard thing for me to do. And really, about 8 years ago, you were the one that got me to do it. Is look back and appreciate where you came from, enjoy the journey, and celebrate your successes. Because I had a hard time doing that.
Yeah.
So how do you get people to really look? People that are really struggling, people that are struggling with their financials. You and I talked about it. How do you get people to go, okay, I can do this. I had a little win. I mean, how do you get that mindset shift to really shift?
I think it's, when you're looking at the unexpected, we're seeking to attract or manifest a desire that we have. And when that doesn't happen, then we go, like I said, failure, mistake, whatever, maybe blame, maybe I go into victim mentality. But what I originally shared with you 8 years ago. Time is flying, by the way. So I must have been a lot older 8 years ago then. Yeah. But when we look at these things, what we realize is that progress has to be measured by looking back. And that's hard for the human mind to realize, because like you and I are very driven. We're goal oriented. We set plans. We look at the future. We create visions. We do these types of things. And so where you were is you had been so focused on where you were going, what you were going to do, and what was next, that we got you to turn around and look back and go, damn, look at where I've come from. Look at what I've been able to do. And all of you today can look back 3, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago and go, wow, look at the relationships I've had. Look at the children that I've created. Look at the whatever those are. Now, that doesn't mean you're living in your, everything's roses and daisies and skipping through an amazing field, whatever. But you look at, hey, it's all about progress. And I think one of the challenges is, one of my favorite Warren Buffett quotes when it comes to finance is happening right now in the crypto market at the time we're recording this. Warren says that nobody knows who's swimming naked until the tide goes out, right? And so in finance, the crypto tide has gone out, and there's some people that went, oh no, where's my bathing suit, right? And so what I would encourage you as you're navigating wherever you are in your finance, in your relationship, in your business, in your career, whatever it is, that I would add on to Warren's quote or concept and say, you've got to be willing to look at yourself naked first. So what do I mean by that? Like, oh, nobody wants to look at themselves naked in the mirror. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, whatever. And so we don't look at reality. We don't look at truth. We know, I think it might've been an old AA thing, but that all progress begins with telling the truth.
Right.
And I've been saying that before I got sober, even like that. I believe in that. And the fact is, wherever you are is where you are. And as soon as you can go, I'm naked. Nobody else knows it yet because the tide's in, but I know I'm naked under here. What do I need to do in order to find my trunks? I know they're in here somewhere. Like whatever it is, right? And I think when we tell ourselves the truth, it's scary, but it's freeing.
Right.
And all of us that are in this community right now sharing this energy know there's been a time when you've gone, oh, this is really hard, but I've got to do this. And as soon as that decision is made, the change doesn't even have to come. There's freedom in making a decision sometimes. And I think that's important.
Right. And you and I were talking earlier about that. And, you had taught me a long time ago about, little hinges swing big doors. It's the same thing in finance. Little tiny things make a big difference. Do something.
Yes.
Acknowledge.
Yes.
If you do have a problem, if you are naked under the water, acknowledge that you have debt. Acknowledge that, your creditors are after you, whatever. And then attack it a little bit at a time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So we also were talking about last night, desire versus contentment.
Mm-hmm.
And, I never really thought about that until we were talking about that.
Yeah.
Because we all have desire.
Yeah.
But how do you get the contentment with it?
Absolutely. And that was what's really brought up that conversation, because it's something I've been working on in my own mind. And I share transparently here on your podcast with your followers, like, I'm a work in progress. I'm considered a behavior change expert, and I write books, and I've got coaching companies and all that stuff. I'm working on myself, and as I learn, I share. And so we were talking, and I was saying, desire and contentment. Where is that difference? And what we talked, and I shared one of my mentors. I believe that maybe the thing is desire and contentment. And so, I think there's this challenge, and I'd love to hear your perspective for your following around. You have this desire. So for me, what really happened was I'm happier than I've ever been. I've got the best relationship. I've got the best team. My business is doing great. Everything in my life is fantastic. And yet there's certainly things behind the scenes that are challenged, and some close people to me have some health challenges that are being dealt with, which I do believe the universe is bringing for a reason. I'm not gonna say that it's not, but I think that I found myself in this place where I'm a driven entrepreneur. It's what got me here. But then I start going, well, is desire a bad thing? Because I'm content, but content used to mean complacent to me. Contentment would mean I'm not, well, gosh, am I just going to lay on the couch now and not do anything?
Right.
And reality is we need to have desire. We had to have a desire to get on camera today.
Right.
You had to desire to write Never Buy the Book. You had to have a desire to become a millionaire. You had to desire to become a speaker, to become a coach. All the things, those take desire. The challenge is that we tend to think that the desire is going to create the contentment. And so we have to be content while we're desiring and while we're creating. And I think that's one of the challenges.
Yeah.
So for your following here, what is that balance from your perspective around, we were talking a little bit about it. I desire to elevate my financial consciousness, work toward becoming debt-free, whatever, that's my desire. But can I be content in that process, even though I still have 30, 40, 50,
Right.
100 grand in credit card debt, but I'm working on it? What would you offer up to our fans here today?
I would say stick, and we talked about this, stick with it. So many people start, and then if it doesn't go their way, or what, one little hiccup, one little roadblock, and everything goes to hell.
The unexpected.
The unexpected, yeah. And we've talked, you and I over the years have talked about a lot about this. Back to the basics of blocking and tackling. It's the same thing with business. So many people want to, do this or do that. Get back to the basics. I mean, you had told me at one time, and I think Dan Sullivan's the one that had talked to you about, or you had taught, the difference between a person that makes $100,000 a year and $1 million a year. Can you tell my audience what the difference is there?
Yeah, so one of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, runs a coaching program that he's got there's there's income qualification to participate in his coaching. And he has $100,000 a year that you have to make, and then there's a $500,000, and then there's $1 million level. And so I was talking to him, and I said, Dan, I wasn't in the $1 million level, by the way. And so I was like,
as of yet,
what's the difference between the people in the $100,000 income group and the people in the $1 million income group? And he said what was interesting is it's because it's the same content.
Right.
And he said it's the same questions framed in a different way. And I think that's important for us to realize that we tend to think think about all the division in society right now, whether it's in country, out of country, whatever it is. We tend to think that people that are different than us are way different than us. And yet we're all humans, and we're all having a human experience, and we're all doing the best we can. And that was that's another one of my core beliefs. And I battled Marcus Straub, my coach that you are aware of, and you Marcus and I did that program together that really
Unleash Your Greatest Life.
When you and I first got together.
If nobody's ever heard of it and I haven't talked about it, Unleash Your Greatest Life is one of the best personal development things I've ever done. It's a 21-day series. It's a deep dive into yourself. The first 7 days is relationship with yourself. Second 7 days, relationship with others. And the last 7 days, relationship with finance. Literally changed my life.
So we don't offer it anymore. So reach out to Kelly, fill in the comments or whatever, and I'll make it available to anybody on here. We literally don't even sell that product anymore. And so
but I am working on him to do it again.
If anybody wants, just reach out to Kelly, and I'll make that available for your audience for that. And I think that it's important to realize that I hesitate to use the words "we're all in this together" after the whole pandemic stuff and whatever, but we're in this human experience together, right? And and we are doing the best we can. When that's where I was starting to go, is that was hard for me. I wasn't always a good person, and I'm doing the best I can now. But and now I realize I was a good person. It reminds me of my mom would say, I love you, but I don't like you right now, right? And she would tell me, I don't like you, but I love you. And then I adopted that. It's fascinating to say that out loud here today. I did that with myself. And yet I was missing the love part. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like the actions I was taking. And therefore, for me, I developed addictions to cover up and use as coping mechanisms, because I didn't have that overarching, like I'm missing the word, but overall love. Now when I act out of congruency, if I do something that's not in alignment, I'm able to catch it, observe it, journal about it, apologize if I need to, whatever, but I'm not creating my identity around it. So if you slip up and you use your credit card and you're not planning on it, be easy with yourself, catch the behavior, observe the behavior, journal about it, write about it, meditate about it, understand why you did it, so you can start reversing that algorithm in your mind that makes you do it.
And go back to the basics.
Back to the basics. The plan's not sexy.
No, it's not, is it?
And that's part of the challenge is, think about we're so blessed to have your attention here today, because attention is the number one currency. It's not money. It's not Bitcoin. It's not crypto. It's attention. And we have your attention and we're blessed. But what we don't realize is the big companies, they have attention engineers now. They're spending billions and billions of dollars to get you to get that credit card out. It's harder now than it's ever been to be financially independent on one hand, because we're barraged nonstop all the time. You don't know. Think about the danger. One of the things that I'm fired up right now because I get passionate about this, comparison mindset, the most dangerous, destructive, debilitating mindset on the planet. And you don't know that you've even got it until it's introduced to you, until there's an advertisement. There's this new thing. There's this new product. There's a new car. There's a new... oh my gosh, I've got to have it. I didn't know it existed 5 minutes ago, but now I'm willing to leverage my house and my financial future to have it. Oh my God. Like, let's step back.
Yeah.
And sometimes turn off the TV. And I'll say it right now. Stop watching the news.
Yeah.
Okay. That was my little...
and social media.
And social media, except for this. You get to do this. This one only.
This one only.
Okay, you can find mine too. But other than that, that's it.
Speaking of finding yours, you do a podcast as well.
I do.
Can you tell us about that?
Leadership in a Nutshell. It's 10, 15-minute solo cast once a week that I drop on Tuesdays. And really, I believe that everybody is in a leadership role. So it has an overarching kind of business context to it. But I hear from kids in high school and different, everybody's leading. Les Brown, when I was traveling with the great Les Brown, he taught me when two people go for a walk, somebody sets the pace. And I believe that's true in life. We're all leaders. So I just do a quick snippet once a week on Leadership in a Nutshell.
If nobody's watched it, and you don't have to be like you said, you don't have to be a leader, but I would recommend you listen to it. It's probably the best 10, 15 minutes you could spend. I've been listening to it ever since you started it. And it always gives me a quick mindset. If I'm struggling with a mindset, it gives me a quick mindset shift.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And can you tell us about your book as well?
Yeah, I just recently dropped a book, Blue Collar Success Laws. I actually happen to have a copy right here. Expect the unexpected. I bet you didn't expect that. No, you probably did. But what you're not going to get that you might expect is a hard sell. I actually will give you a copy of the book if you go to bluecollarlaws.com. And again, you don't have to be in the blue collar space. I just have 7 laws that are successful to me. I run a company called the Blue Collar Success Group. That's why we titled it Blue Collar Success Laws. But really, it is a success law book, everything from abundance to self-care and the laws that I believe in. And so bluecollarlaws.com, and we'll get you a copy for sure.
So this is what, your 4th book now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So
that's correct.
I haven't finished reading this one. I have read, what was the last one?
6 Dimensions of Change.
Read that like 3 or 4 times. And I would recommend anybody read that too. You want a good mindset shift. 6 Dimensions of Change will really make you look at yourself as well. Great book. This one, like I said, I haven't finished reading it yet, but I will.
Yeah.
So what's next for Kenny? I know you're always creating. You're always wanting to work on the mind.
Yeah, I'm in a very Blue Collar Success Group. If you happen to be a contractor, we'd love to have a chat with you. And again, my book is my main project right now that I'm focused on, and I'm really just my mission in life and part of my overall primary purpose is just elevating consciousness. And I believe that we have an amazing time right now in humanity to elevate our consciousness, and I believe that when we elevate consciousness, we're able to really take a look at our self-expression, and confidence and self-esteem are part of this mental health epidemic that I'm talking about. And I know I struggled with self-image and confidence. You and I were just talking the other night at your house about your struggles, and clients go, "What? You can't believe
struggle
it."
with confidence?"
It's part of reality. And I think that as you elevate your consciousness and you get ego out of the way, the ego is a very, very tricky thing in the mind. And I'm really just out there just sharing anything I can from a humble, transparent, vulnerable space to help people realize that, we're coined as thought leaders, and we get on camera and we have conversations, but today we're just literally capturing part of a conversation we had in the car on the way over here today, because we're just living life and we're just sharing what works for us, and hopefully people find value in that and can do some good positive things in their own lives.
Well, you just said a word that really resonates with me, and that's being vulnerable. And that's a thing when it comes to finances and business and life. If you can be vulnerable, that I truly believe that's going to help open you up to move forward.
100%. That ties to that progress of telling the truth. And I think the ego is what blocks vulnerability, and our fear of ourselves sometimes is really what blocks it. And for me, when I got sober, I went through a program or worked with a coach that I didn't tell anybody for a year, except for Christy called you, I think, originally. My lovely Christy called you, or the lovely Christy. My sounds possessive. I write about her. I call her the lovely Christy. I promise. I meant like.
Wait till we get back to the house. I'm going to tell her about this
our relationship. But she called you, and I told a close friend of mine back in Colorado, and I told my leadership team at the business. And beyond that, I didn't tell anybody, because I believe in going through the experience without the additional pressure of the ego. So I can just say, no, I'm not drinking right now. I know I'm not drinking for life, but to remove that pressure. So I was vulnerable to myself and my close peers, but I didn't want that additional pressure. So when you go to, I'm going to change my financial picture. The challenge is that now I post on Facebook and I'm going to run Kelly Schols' plan to it. You're setting yourself up for failure. So there's a balance between being vulnerable and allowing the ego to go, look at me, I'm doing this. Because we see in addiction recovery, I've been sober for a week and I'm on Facebook and I'm like, look at me. Unfortunately, statistically, you're done at that point from about a 97% standpoint, because your ego's looking for the same dopamine hit that it got from when it was drinking, to having all the comments, good for you, oh my gosh, I wish I could do it, you're amazing. That's not what you're doing it for. Back to finance. You can't do it for Kelly Schols because you watch his podcast and listen to his great information. You've got to do it for yourself, using him as a mentor and a coach in the process.
And that's part of the downfall with social media, is so many people think, oh, I'm going to post this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that to get that positive feedback. Well, if you're vulnerable and you have a coach or mentor, and you reach out to that coach or mentor, you're going to get that positive feedback if you're doing the right things, if you're doing the basic things of what you should be doing, instead of the false, hoorah.
Right.
Because the false hoorah isn't getting you anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Kenny, it's been an honor having you back on the show again. We need to do it again.
Absolutely.
And
Thank
we're
you.
going to have a lot more conversations because we're going to be together for a couple days. So our minds are going to be going crazy here for the next few days.
Absolutely.
So any closing words for my audience?
I would just remind everybody to be easy with yourself. When we're in times of transition, which is all the time, by the way, I think that we forget. And there's all the cliches out there of, oh, the only thing that is constant is change itself. And I wrote the book on change. Okay, I wrote a book on change. It sounds a lot better when I say I wrote. But when I wrote 6 Dimensions of Change, which I wrote the first book, and then after I got sober, I wrote 2.0, is why there's 2 books under the same title, but the second one's 2.0. So I'm huge in change and understanding and working through it, but I don't like those cliches. And when we're in transition times that we're aware of, because they're always out there, and the pandemic was a big one for me from a standpoint of I've got money, I've got time, I've got freedom, I've got the ability to go anywhere I want to go. And then based on personal choices, a lot of the world said, no, you can't go here, you can't come here, you can't do that. And I went, I don't have some freedom that I thought that I did. And so that, what a blessing. Again, universe did me a favor because it made me go, okay, well, where am I mentally free? And so as we navigate the next 18, 24, 36 months, whatever this is going to look like, be easy with yourself. Don't kick your own butt. Don't compare yourself to others. It's so easy to look at, oh, that person's doing this or that. You just kind of see that surface, and just love yourself, trust yourself, be good to yourself. And enjoy the journey. Life's amazing.
Awesome.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on, man.
Thanks for listening to Never By the Book podcast. And Kenny, thanks for being on. I appreciate it. And let's get you back here in not in 2 years.
Let's do it sooner.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.